What's happening, everybody? Dave Bowen back again with another video today. And as you can see here, today we're going to talk about what is wrong with our society. I'm going to give you some of my thoughts on Neo Platonism, the soul, and the mysteries. The mystery schools that have been basically in our world since man began. So since man was put on Earth. The closest thing we have today to that is Freemasonry, and I know there's a lot of negative stuff out there on Freemasonry, and I've done a lot of research on it. I'm not a Freemason myself, and I do kind of want to touch on why there's a lot of negative stuff out there on Freemasonry, and why some of it is correct and most of it is not. But I probably will do a separate video on that topic, but I think it is worth bringing up a short discussion on in this video. But I do want to start out with the mystery schools, because it's very important for everything that I'm going to talk about in this video. And really what the mystery schools were. The mystery schools really started in India or Samaria, from Samaria to India. And then eventually, of course, there were the Chaldean mysteries, the Persian mysteries. There everywhere that there was a good civilization, a civilization that had somewhat of good technology and good civilization, good sized civilization. There were mystery schools, and they really were responsible for the big civilizations in our history. Egypt. The Druids over in Britain, all over the world, India, the Brahmins, the Buddhists, anywhere that there was a big civilization, Babylon, there were mystery schools. Greece is notorious for the illusion mysteries. So really, a lot of people, they get all tied up on the mysteries and trying to comprehend, and they are not easy to comprehend. But I do want to give you a key, a key to those of you that are trying to figure out the secrets of, say, Freemasonry or any of the ancient mystery schools. And that key is that everything, you have to think of nature. What the mysteries represented, were nature. And where they got their symbols and allegories were from nature, or from, when I say nature, I mean the universe in general. The universe in general, the stars, the planets, and the way that nature works here on our planet. So a lot of the symbolism was derived from that. And, the Egyptian hieroglyphics represented those symbols, And for instance, like the, and even stories. And that's why I can confidently say, and again, whatever I say in this video is my opinion, but a lot of it is based on facts, on things that I have researched. But that's why I can confidently say that Jesus was an initiate of the mystery schools. And there are books out there that you can read. I'm sure there's videos too out there that you can watch on the missing 18 years of Jesus' life. Jesus traveled to India. He was initiated by the Brahmins and studied under the Buddhists and many other of the mystery schools. So, the reason I can confidently say that is because Jesus taught in parables, allegories, and symbols. And, if you read the book of Revelation in the Bible, that is nothing but a massive, the whole keys to the occult learning, the occult knowledge, everything is in the book of Revelation. Now, unless you are initiated or unless you have studied this stuff, you will not be able to understand the symbols. I am still trying to understand them myself, because they're very, they're not meant to be easily understood. You had to be initiated to understand those symbols. But the mystery schools were really they were the first religion. And a lot of people think that Greece, the Greeks were, they made gods in their image, and like I have a book on mythology, and that's what this author says, and I just shake my head, But the fact that our present day scholars, our present people are supposed to be learned men and women, still think that just shows you how good they were at hiding things under symbols. And what the gods in Greece, and which were derived from Egypt, which were derived from India and the Buddhists, symbolize was the forces of nature, and how because you have to understand that God, okay, the one infinite creator, all right, the first cause, cannot, he is not material. He is a being, but he is not being. He is beyond duality. Okay, there is no way for him to manifest himself or herself, whatever you want to call it, because it's really whatever you call it, androgynous, or however you pronounce it. It's not male or female, it's both. But the only way that it can manifest itself into our reality is to slowly emanate from itself. So, if you study like the Kabbalah, which is basically, it started from Moses and Joseph, who were initiated into the Egyptian mysteries. And that's another perfect example of how the Old Testament is nothing but a bunch of allegorical stories from the Egyptian mysteries taken from Moses, that Moses took from Egypt and, kind of changed them a little bit, which is what every ancient civilization did. They changed their mystery schools, their allegories, their stories, their gods to fit their culture, but they all had the same meaning. Like Zeus and the demiurges of the Gnostics, and Osiris, Isis, they all have they have different names. They may have different attributes, but they're all the same. They represent the same things. I forget where I was going with that, but they all symbolized forces of nature and emanations from the one. So, for instance, God, like in the Hebrew Bible, our Bible, which was taken from the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, their God was a revengeful, just absolute tyrant, really. Fearful. You were supposed to be afraid of him, and that's not God. Okay, that's not the first cause. But that's the way that they saw it, and but basically what that God represents. Okay, and they call it Elohim or Jehovah or Yahweh, which all have symbolic meanings. Okay, if you look in the Kabbalah, the Elohim are 7 spirits that are very important, for Earth and really the universe in general, which is where the number 7 comes in. I mean, number 7 is a extremely important symbolic number in numerology and the mystery schools. Okay, just like in the book of Revelation, you've got the 7 candlesticks and the 7 angels over, which the candlesticks represent the churches, over the churches or the candlesticks. Okay, it's all over the book of Revelation, the number 7. But then you also have Jehovah or Yahweh, which is the same thing as Zeus or the demiurgus of the Gnostics, okay, or Neo Platonism, the Neo Platonists. And that is the Lord of the world, okay, the Lord of our world, all right? It's not the first cause, okay? It's the Lord of the material world, all right, which comes from the first cause. Now, I'm not going to get into all this stuff in this video. I'll probably talk about more of this in other videos, but I want to give you a background of the mystery schools because, again, what I'm going to talk about is important because when it comes to Plato and really understanding Plato and his teachings, okay, or anybody after Plato that was a Neoplatonist, you have to understand that Plato was initiated in the mystery schools, all right? And Proclus, who hardly anybody studies, and I have not myself had a chance to go get his books yet, but I have studied like Manly P. Hall here in Lectures on Ancient Philosophy, and I also have a lot of his audio programs where he talks about Proclus. But Proclus was the most important. He was in, I believe, 500 AD or 400 AD, somewhere in that neighborhood, or current era, who believe just what I'm telling you, that Plato wrote in in an allegorical way, and unless you were initiated, you wouldn't truly understand Plato's philosophy. Excuse me. And even in the beginning of this book I have, The Great Dialogues of Plato, the guy that does the introduction gives this quote. from an ancient commenter on Plato, and it says, shortly before his death, Plato had a dream that he was a swan flitting from tree to tree and eluding the bird catchers. When Simaeus the Socratic heard this, he interpreted it to mean that all men would try to grasp Plato's meaning, but that none would succeed, and each would interpret him according to his own views. Okay, so Plato even told us himself that, you know, unless you were steeped in the wisdom of antiquity and the mystery schools, you would not completely understand his teaching. Okay, and you know, if you look at every single, and I've said this many times in my videos and blog posts, if you look at every single ancient religion, they all have the same underlying meaning. Okay, they all basically have the same underlying teachings. To give you a perfect example, like the story of Jesus, if you study the story of Isis, Osiris, and Horus, you will see an unbelievable correlation in that story, where Isis was a virgin. Well, it starts out with Osiris was an ancient king of Egypt. He was his brother Typhon, which represents our devil. Okay, which was the of course serpent. He was like a serpent. Okay, and I'll show you a picture from Manly P. Hall's book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages. And Typhon was an extremely important symbolic figure in the mystery schools. Here is a picture of Hermes, okay, stepping on Typhon, and hopefully you can see that. Typhon is kind of like a mixture between an alligator and a serpent, all right, and he was represented other ways than that, but that's basically what he was represented as. But Typhon symbolized ignorance, evil, you know, the succumbing to mankind's passions. Okay, and when you step on Typhon, you step on ignorance, and you overcome your animal nature passions. Okay, is when you really become wise and become like the gods. Okay, become like the gods. And there's a guy by the name of Thomas Carlyle. I actually have it, but I have not read it yet. But Manly P. Hall talks about it in one of his lectures, and it's about hero worship. Okay, about how, and you know, you can probably think about this, because basically all our stories, whatever, you know, famous story, like for instance, The Hobbit, you know, J.R.R. Tolkien's books, you know, the Lord of the Rings, there's all kinds of them, but they're all based on, you know, heroes. And there's even a formula now that, well, that has been used for a while now, that Hollywood uses. And it's called the hero's journey. I've kind of touched on this before, but it's extremely important, not necessarily in this video, but to understand where this comes from and what this means. And it's a journey that every single mythology and current movie for the past, I don't know, 20, 30 years has used. And if you just go Google it, I'll pull it up. Actually, I'm not connected to the internet. Hold on a second. But it's a formula, and it's very, very strange, because even our life goes by this formula, and even our history, you know, mass populations go by this formula, and it's very strange. It's a mystery. And there was a guy by the name of David Wilcock. I have his book, The Synchronicity Key. He really goes into detail on this. That's where I got a lot of my information about it. But anyways, you know, so the story starts out. You know, the main character is called to an adventure. A good movie to think of while I'm talking about this is Star Wars. Okay, what's his name? George Lucas followed this to the T. So, you know, Luke Skywalker's called to an adventure. He finds a supernatural aid, which would be Obi-Wan Kenobi. Then here is the known world, okay? This is the world, and this is, I love this because it represents the journey to the truth, which I have gone through in the past 2 or 3 months, 4 months, and I've went from my known world, my little box that I lived in, you know, which I was asleep in for 24 years. And most people are currently asleep in their own boxes, which basically represents our beliefs, you know, our perceptions of reality. and what the world and life is, okay? And then here is the unknown, of course, you know, which is basically you have to completely relearn again when you're taking this to symbolize human nature. You have to completely relearn again, and you come to realize that everything you've ever been told in your life was a lie. All right, everything just about that you've ever been told in your life was a lie. Our history, you know, all kinds of stuff. I'm not going to get into detail on that right now, but this represents even human life perfectly. So, you know, here's the threshold, you know, threshold guardians. Then he is taken into the unknown world. And it says here, beginning of transformation. In the mystery schools, this is what happened in the mystery schools, okay? Joseph Campbell is a guy that came up with this. He did this massive breakthrough research on this. And he found that, like I said, this was in every single mythology. Well, as I said in the beginning, the stories of mythology represent, you know, nature and the mysteries of life. Most of it is not history, just like our Bible, just like the Christian Bible. Okay, it does not represent necessarily historical facts. Now, some of it is, which they have found ruins and stuff that prove that a lot of the Bible is historical. But like, for instance, the creation story, the story of Genesis, that is not something to be taken as historical. It's allegorical. There's a lot of symbolism in that, okay? So, you know, that's something we have to understand. But anyway, so, you know, he finds a mentor, a helper. He goes through a lot of challenges and temptations. He gets another helper, and then here is the abyss, which is, again, symbolized in the mystery schools. And this is the point in the story, or in life, where you think all hope is lost, you know, there's no way we can win, we're screwed, you know, we're whatever you want to say. And then all of a sudden, you know, he has a revelation, she has a revelation, and goes through the transformation, goes through the atonement, and then returns to the known world. All right. So that's very important in understanding the mystery schools in life. And as I said in my last video on what happened to America, I'm going to be doing a video on you know, the stars, the planets, and the zodiac, and how they truly do have an effect on our lives. And again, David Wilcock did a great job researching this information about how, you know, they say history repeats itself. Well, that's way more true than you would ever even think of. Okay, if you look at Roman history, and it's either a 539-year cycle, and they go by the zodiac. Okay, so the great year of the zodiac is like 25,000 years, I believe, maybe 26,000 years. It's 2160 times 12, so whatever that is, I'll do it real quick. I want to say it's 25.9 something, or maybe 24.9. 25.920. Now, another very interesting thing is you'll notice, you know, when you break up, that's the great year. So, for instance, like we moved from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. That's what December 21st, 2012 was all about. It wasn't about the end of the world. It was about it was about an end of an age, moving into a new age, moving into the golden age that our forefathers have promised us and prophesied about for eons and eons. But if you know, for instance, like 25.920, okay, so that adds up to 9. 2 plus 5 is 7, plus another 2 is 9, plus 9 is 18, 1 plus 8 is 9. If you take 2160, which is, you know, the 12 into 12 ages or years, which is also important. But anyways, that adds up to 9, 2160. You know, so it's very interesting. Numerology, 9 is very important. 9 is also very important in you know, the mystery schools. And you know, 9 can symbolize man. 9 is supposed to symbolize man. But we're not going to go into that. Well, actually, we will touch on that a little bit later in this video. And I'm trying to digress here and move into the you know, real topic of today. But again, the mystery schools are important to understand, especially for those of you that maybe you can't find the right religion. I was at this point, you know, I grew up a Christian, and I just could not wrap my head around. I mean, I remember I went to a Christian school when you know, from kindergarten to 8th grade, and I remember thinking, even, you know, in second or third grade, like, you're telling me that God is going to sentence somebody to hell because they don't believe in Jesus Christ. Or, if a kid gets aborted, I remember hearing my teachers debate about this, and I just thought, this is ridiculous. That is barbarianism, to say that a kid that gets aborted or dies before he or she can get baptized or come to, know Jesus Christ, they're going to hell? Really? No. That's crazy. And the doctrine of vicarious atonement is the most ridiculous doctrine ever to came up with in our society, in our history. None of the mystery schools preach the doctrine of vicarious atonement. And basically, for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, what that means is that because Jesus died for us, we're saved. We don't have to do anything else. All we have to do is believe that he died for us, and we're saved. And that is insanity. Okay, that is not what Jesus taught. That is not what Jesus taught. And I love the way Buddha puts it. He says, depend on no one, get your own salvation. Okay? Get your own salvation. Depend on no one. All right? Jesus did not die on the cross. He died on the cross to show the way. Okay? He showed us the way. And he even said, it's in, I believe, Matthew, that the works that I have done, ye will do even greater works. Okay? He showed the way. He paved the way. Jesus was an extremely important figure. I am not saying that Jesus did not come to earth, that he was not an important figure. He was. But, and I started to talk about this in my last video. I saw a video on YouTube, and this is a perfect example of why I have such a, I don't want to say anything negative, but I have such strong feelings against where Christianity is going, how far off the track they have gone from what Jesus really taught. Okay? And I'm about to have a train go by here, but they've gotten so far off the track, it's mind-boggling, and it's very frustrating because, as I said in the last video, it's causing a lot of people to become atheists, and that is not what Jesus wanted. That is not what Jesus wanted. So, anyways, I saw this video on YouTube about this. It's a very popular YouTube channel. Must be, I think it's a preacher or something like that. But anyways, they were talking about how this Buddhist monk, all right, he had a near-death experience, and supposedly and here's the thing, before I finish, before I tell the story, you have to understand that your beliefs, all right, which a lot of it comes from what our society fills our head with, but your beliefs create your reality, all right? So that's why every near-death experience that you hear, a lot of them have the same things like a great white light, but some of them have a little different stories, and it depends on what your beliefs are about death and what happens after death creates that, okay? It creates that experience. So anyways, I guess this guy was a Buddhist monk, and he'd been a Buddhist monk for a long time, but he had this near-death experience, and he found himself in hell, all right? He found himself in hell. And supposedly, he's talking to, I don't know, the devil or somebody, and the devil says that, that he was going to go to hell if he didn't believe in Jesus Christ. And he says, well, what about Buddha? He was a great guy, blah, blah, blah. He preached, peace and love and happiness and all this stuff. And he said, well, Buddha's right there. Siddhartha Gautama, or however you pronounce his name, is right there. And the reason he went to hell is because he didn't believe in Jesus Christ. And I thought, you have got to be kidding me. You have got to be kidding me. I mean, that is insanity. No other religion in the history of mankind ever said that somebody was going to go to hell because they didn't believe, because that person didn't believe what their religion believed. You know what I'm saying? Christianity is the only religion that says that. But anyways, back to the doctrine of vicarious atonement, because it's important for this topic today on the soul and what's wrong with our society. And that is a major problem of what's wrong with our society, is because we think that we can just let someone else do everything for us. And that's what's happening in our society today, what's happened with America. And I touched on this in my last video, is we think we can just sit back and let these politicians, which in the first place should not be politicians for life, Okay, they should be citizens that volunteer for a few